Okay, good morning. Welcome everyone to our first chapter of our Richard L. Thompson lecture series. We are reading the book Vedic Cosmography and Astronomy. We started with the introduction last week, which was presented by Prishni Sutton, and today we welcome Murali Gopal Das, who is going to be speaking on chapter 1, the Astronomical Siddhantas. So Morley has earned a Ph.D. in physics from Ohio University. He served as in an internship at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. He completed a postdoc at Columbia University in New York City. He's taught Sanskrit at the University of Florida, and currently he's joining us from Houston, Texas, where he's doing a residency in medical physics, and he's been a research associate for the BIHS since 2015. So thank you very much, Morley. Welcome. You can go ahead and share the screen.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'll just be going through the first chapter of the book. So this is just you can just look at it as the cliff notes if you want for this chapter. So I'll just be briefly trying to get to you the information that Sariputta gave on this. So let me start the slideshow here. Right. So if you have any questions, you can do them. You can make the questions during the presentation because it's a lot of information, and if you get lost along the way, then you might not come back. All right. So these astronomical siddhantas are the first chapter is the astronomical siddhantas. So these astronomical siddhantas are important treatises. The cosmology of the astronomical siddhantas, we should say, is similar to the Western cosmology. And there are two principal works that were quoted by Srila Prabhupada, which are the Surya Siddhanta and the Siddhanta Shiromani. You might remember these if you read, all through Prabhupada's books. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, he was interested in Vedic astronomy and astrology because he wanted to establish that the Vedic astronomical tradition was independent of the Greek and European influence. Basically, the British at that time, they were trying to say that, well, in England and everything from the West was superior to India. So this was Bhaktisiddhanta's reaction to their claims. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, he wrote Bengali translation of the Surya Siddhanta and many other works. He had 2 monthly magazines on Vedic astronomy and astrology, which is amazing. And he published almanacs with religious dates. In the recent centuries, this Surya Siddhanta and similar works have had an important role in Indian culture. How? In preparing the calendars and in performing astrological calculations. We know that this was also done in Vedic times. So what Sariputta Prabhu says here is that their similar systems must have been present at that time. Now, it's important for us to understand that these works, these astronomical treatises, they are genuine, but they're not transcendental. We have to see that there is a difference there in their categories. We have authors of the astronomical siddhantas, such as Bhaskaracharya, who were just unable to accept some of the cosmological statements of the Puranas. One could ask, how could Vaishnavacharyas, such as Bhaktisiddhanta, accept works which criticize the Puranas, right? And we have to understand that astronomical siddhantas have a different status than the transcendental literature, such as Srimad Bhagavatam. They are authentic because they belong to a genuine Vedic astronomical tradition, but nonetheless, they are human works that may contain imperfections. And many of them were composed in recent centuries and make the use of empirical observations. We'll talk a little bit more about that in later on here. Others, such as the Surya Siddhanta, they are attributed to demigods. Yes, the Surya Siddhanta is attributed to demigods, but they were transmitted to us by persons who are not spiritually perfect. So take that as you may. The thesis of this book is that astronomical siddhantas constitute a practical division of Vedic science, and they are used by Vaishnavacharyas throughout history. And the thesis of this book is that what we have now as what we read now as the Astronomical Siddhantas are actually works that are surviving remnants of earlier astronomical science that was fully compatible with the cosmology of the Puranas, and that was disseminated in human society by demigods and great sages. So that is what this book is all about. With the progress of Kali Yuga, he postulates that knowledge was largely lost. And in recent centuries, the knowledge that has survived to us has been reworked by various Indian astronomers and brought up to date by means of empirical observations. The methods of calculation before the Kali Yuga must have been they must have had at least the same scope and the order of sophistication of methods that are presented in the Surya Siddhanta, so that they could get comparable results. The Itihasas and the Puranas, it's important to say, they do not contain the rules of astronomical calculations. The Vedas, somebody might say, oh, the Vedas contain the Vedanga Jyotisha. That's one of the limbs of the Vedas. Yes, that is true, but this is only the calculations there are very brief and rudimentary. Now, let's talk about the solar system according to the Surya Siddhanta. The Surya Siddhanta treats the Earth as a globe fixed in space. So right there, right from this, we can see that we're not talking about flat Earth, as some devotees have said that in all of this was flat Earth before recent times. So no, we're talking about Surya Siddhanta is treating the Earth as a globe fixed in space. And it describes the 7 traditional planets, which are the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. And they describe them as moving in orbits around the Earth. So, and it also describes the orbit of the planet called Rahu, but it makes no mention of Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. The main function of the Surya Siddhanta is to provide rules to calculate the positions of these planets at any given time. So if you're going to the Surya Siddhanta to learn astrology, you might still have to go to other books to learn more, because most of what you're going to learn from the Surya Siddhanta is just to calculate the positions of these planets. And this is done mostly now by computer programs. So you don't really need to do that nowadays. The only difference with the modern Western model of the solar system is that this Surya Siddhanta model is geocentric, which is not really a problem. It's just a different point of view. So in here you can see the two views. On the right you have the heliocentric model with the sun in the center, the Earth going around it, and Venus also going around it. If you look at this from the point of view of the geocentric model, you see that the Earth is in the center. Yes, the sun is going around the Earth because that is how it's perceived from Earth. But they include Venus going around the sun. And so the way that we will see Venus from the point of view of Earth will be of doing these funny spirals, not just a circle around the Earth, but going in spirals around the Earth. Now, there is a close correspondence between the Surya Siddhanta and the modern Western astronomy. You can see here that Rahu corresponds to the ascending node of the moon. If you look at here, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Can you all see my cursor?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So we have the Earth, and we have the ecliptic here, which is this red or brown, whatever you want to call it, circle. And this is the orbit of the sun, right? Now, this is the orbit of the moon, the one in black. And the points where these two meet, that's where there's eclipses, right? And what it's saying here is that the ascending node, which is when the moon crosses the ecliptic, the path of the sun, and as it's going up, this is what is referred to as Rahu, and Ketu is referred to as this node as the moon goes down. So the eclipses and Rahu and Ketu, they correspond in this way. We can conclude that the Surya Siddhanta presents a picture of relative motions and positions of planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, that agrees quite well with modern astronomy. As you can see here, the Surya Siddhanta distance and the Western distance with the heliocentric distances of the planets. Now, what is the opinion of the Western scholars? And probably Janaki Ramprabhu, who is in here, might be able to tell us a little bit more about it. But this is what Sariputta Prabhu put at the time that this book was written in the 80s. And it's that the opinion of the modern Western scholars is the following: that the astronomical school of Siddhantas was imported into India from Greek sources in the early centuries of the Christian era. And the cosmology of the Puranas represents an earlier indigenous phase in development of Hindu thought, which is entirely mythological and unscientific. And they also claim that astronomical Siddhantas do not acknowledge this foreign source material. So therefore, what the Western scholars are saying is that they're accusing the Indian astronomers basically of fraud. They took it from the Greeks, and they are not acknowledging that they took it from the Greeks. So basically, it's a fraud. Although the history books do not generally acknowledge it, there is evidence that there is extensive contact between India and ancient Greece. Here's an alternate explanation that Sariputta Prabhu gives, and is that the Greeks and the Indians once shared a common culture, which included knowledge of astronomy. Over time, the great cultural differences developed, but many common cultural features remained. And now, due to Kali Yuga, the astronomical knowledge was lost several times in Greece over the last few thousand years, and later regained through communication with India, discovery of old texts, and individual creativity. Now, let's talk about the Vedic calendar and astrology. So, the astronomical Siddhantas were written by recent Indian astronomers. And by recent, we mean like medieval times. Srimad Bhagavatam describes the Vedic culture, which dates back thousands of years. So this suggests that the methods of astronomical calculation, as sophisticated as those of astronomical Siddhantas, were also in use in India thousands of years ago. For example, to observe the Shraddha ceremony, the Shraddha ceremony, if you remember, is the one that has to do with departed family members. It's only to perform it properly, one needs services of an expert astronomer, and one could not even define such a combination of planetary positions without considerable astronomical sophistication. So therefore, the role of astrology in Vedic culture provides another line of evidence for the existence of highly developed systems of astronomical calculations in Vedic times. Srila Prabhupada, in fact, has indicated that astrology played an integral role in the karmakanda functions of Vedic society. Now, what is the starting date of Kali Yuga? You want to know what that date is? Well, Surya Siddhanta, time is measured in days since the start of Kali Yuga. So if one calculates, what is the current date according to Surya Siddhanta, you can see that Kali Yuga began on February 18th, 3102 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar. So there you go. That's the start of the Kali Yuga. According to modern astronomy, approximate alignment of planets did occur at the beginning of Kali Yuga, as it is explained. Such planetary alignments are rare, and in fact, Sariputta Prabhu wrote a computer program and searched for how many of those close alignments were given since February 18th, 3102 BC, and only 3 of them came up. Only 3 times in the span of 5,000 years came up. So one would ask, one would, if one is saying like, oh, this is all made up, this idea of the Kali Yuga, we would ask, why would anyone search for astronomical alignments over periods of thousands of years into the past and then redefine the history of an entire civilization on the basis of a particular discovered alignment? It wouldn't make sense. In other words, we would expect that the statements of the Puranas and the Vedas are actually true when they talk about Kali Yuga and everything else. Astronomical Siddhantas do not show perfect accuracy over long periods of time. And this is something important that we have to say here. Many times we want to say that, oh, everything in the Vedas is perfect. And they're even more perfect than anything that modern astronomy can give. Well, again, don't think that. What is perfection? We have to understand that perfection is not precision necessarily. According to the Jyotish Shastras themselves, information contained is based on 2 sources. 1 is the revelation of the demigods, and 2 is human observation. So the calculations are simple enough so that you can have hand calculations, but they lose accuracy over time. And this is important because to get precision nowadays, you have to have very powerful computers doing extensive calculations that includes many decimal points. If you want to get something that is just good enough to be able to make a calculation for the purposes of astrology, then being able to do hand calculations is much more practical. And that is what these astronomical siddhantas are giving, is just rules so that you can do something that is good enough so that you can do it by hand and not have to do decimal points up to I don't know how much. So the works updated, these works, these astronomical siddhantas are updated from time to time to keep agreement with celestial phenomena. They talk about these bijas, these seeds that you have to rework. You have to put into them these numbers so that they can keep accuracy over time. Sariputta made a computer study, and he noticed that the calculations from the Surya Siddhanta agree most closely around the year 1000. So probably that's the last time that they were updated. There is abundant evidence of elaborate programs of astronomical observations in India in recent centuries. It is possible that over thousands of years, observatories were erected in India when needed. The reason that there are no elaborate accounts of observational methods in the Jyotish-shastras, if you look at the Jyotish-shastras, it's mostly calculations, but it doesn't talk too much about observational methods. The reason for this is that it was not intended to be textbooks, comprehensive textbooks. They're intended to be brief guides for calculators. The textbooks, if you've noticed, in Indian in the Indian works, they're never written as comprehensive as we understand it nowadays, because the knowledge was disclosed only to qualified disciples. If you wanted to understand a text properly, you have to go to a guru. That it's not intended to be a standalone way of learning something. The distances and sizes of the planets. This is another topic. The Surya Siddhanta, planetary diameters, they agree well with modern astronomy. It's not perfect, but they agree well. And this is remarkable since it's hard to arrive at these diameters by observation without powerful modern telescopes. Remember that modern telescopes began with Galileo. And this is already in the Renaissance period. So how could they get these observations? That's very interesting. We have a problem with the yojana. The yojana is the distance with metric with that they use. Absolute distances are given in the Surya Siddhanta in yojanas. Okay. But what is the standard definition of a yojana? There are a couple of different standard definitions, and they don't all agree with each other. So one yojana is said to be 4 kroshas, where a krosha is the maximum distance that a healthy man can shout and be heard by someone with good hearing. That's a little hard to quantify. There's another one in which it says that one yojana is 8,000 nari, or heights of a man. So if you take your one yojana to be 8 miles, which is what Prabhupada generally used in the Bhagavatam, 8 miles equals 1 yojana. We obtain a height of a man to be 5.28 feet, which is not unreasonable. So yeah, okay. Aryabhat, one of the famous Indian astronomers that wrote treatises, he says that the diameter of the Earth, which in the current figure that we have nowadays is 7,928 miles, he says that the diameter of the Earth is 1,050 yojanas. Therefore, the yojana is 7.55 miles. Okay, so that's near to the 8 miles that we were talking about previously. But Bhaskaracharya, which is another very famous Indian astronomer, he says the diameter of the Earth is about 1,581 yojanas, making 1 yojana equal to around 5 miles. 5 miles and 7.55 miles is a little different. And the Surya Siddhanta also gives the diameter of the Earth to be close to that is 1,600 yojanas, which makes the yojana again around 5 miles. So this 5 miles per yojana is too small to be consistent with either the 8 miles per yojana or the 8,000 nari per yojana, because 8.3 feet would be too short of a height for a man. If we take the 8,000 nari to be 1 yojana, 3.3 feet is not reasonable anymore. The for a man, no, maybe for a child, but not for a man. Indian astronomer Parameshvara suggests that these works use another standard of yojana, basically that the works by Bhaskaracharya and Surya Siddhanta are different from those of Aryabhat. Their distances are consistently 60% larger than Aryabhat. So it seems that there were two standards of values. There were the 5 miles per yojana and the 8 miles per yojana. Diameters of the planets. So the Indian astronomers calculated the diameter of the Earth by a method similar to the Greeks, which was measuring the tilt of the shadow in 2 places at noon. The Surya Siddhanta agrees closely with modern astronomy on the size of the moon and its distance to the Earth. However, the orbital circumference of the planets, other than the moon, are much smaller than modern astronomy. The diameters for Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, they're given in yojanas for size of the planetary disk when projected to the orbit of the moon. And I'll show you in a second what that means. So here we see that this is the orbit of the moon around the Earth. And this is the planetary orbit around here. So the sizes that they are giving are not the planet's true size, but the diameter that they give generally is the projected size of the planet on the orbit of the moon. Why is that? Well, because these reduced diameters are given to visualize how large the planets are compared with the full moon. On average, they are too large by a factor of 10, which implies that, and they imply that easily visible with the naked eye. But actually, without a telescope, the planets are like stars. They're just like points. So from the modern point of view, it's not surprising that that it gives inaccurate figures. What is remarkable is that these ancient astronomers, lacking telescopes, could have seen that planets other than the sun and the moon actually have disks. And if we compute the real diameters, they agree very well with modern figures. So here's a table. The mean distance from Earth for most of the planets, it disagrees. The apparent diameter for the sun and the moon, they agree, but the rest disagrees. And the real diameter, as you can see, for some of them it agrees, for some of them it's off by 1/2. Only the sun that disagrees there. And finally, the last thing I'll be talking about today is the size of the universe. The Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that the diameter of the universe is 500 million yojanas. Now, if we take the 8 miles per yojana, as Prabhupada did for the diameter of the universe, we can see that this is like about 4 billion miles. That might seem a lot, but in astronomical sizes, it's not that much. We can basically accommodate the orbit of Saturn. So basically, with 4 billion miles, with the diameter of the universe, we can say that according to the modern distant figures, it can go up to Saturn, but it is smaller than the orbital diameters of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Basically, what it's saying is that if we take the Srimad Bhagavatam diameter of the universe to be 500 million yojanas, we only go up to Saturn. The universe would only go up to Saturn, and Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they're beyond that. However, Surya Siddhanta, in text 1290, it says the following: the circumference of the sphere of the Brahmandi in which the sun's rays spread is 18 quadrillion yojanas. 18 quadrillion. And in the Siddhanta Shiromani, Goladhyaya Bhuvana Kosha, it says, some astronomers have asserted the circumference of the circle to be 18 quadrillion yojanas in length. Note that it's not exactly, it's close, but not exactly as the Surya Siddhanta. But it's still 18 quadrillion yojanas in length. Some say that this is the length of the zone binding the 2 hemispheres of the Brahmanda. Some Pauranikas say that this is the length of the circumference of the Loka Parvata, Adrishya Girim. Now, this 18 quadrillion yojanas corresponds to a diameter, if we take it to be, the 5 miles per yojana of 5,000. What is this? Million, billion, trillion, quadrillion. Yeah. So we have a diameter of 5 quadrillion yojanas for the universe. The distance from the sun to the coverings of the universe is some 5,000 light years. So if you were to measure the distance of the sun to the coverings of the universe, you could go up to 5,000 light years, where a light year is the distance traveled in 1 year by a beam of light moving at 186,000 miles per second. And we use the Siddhantas 5 miles per yojana. So if you say, well, let's take the four, what is it, the 500 million yojanas of the Bhagavatam, and include the coverings of the universe beyond that, right? We can make it not up to not just to the orbit of Saturn, but we can actually go to 5,000 light years. That means that according to the Bhagavatam, if we include the coverings of the universe, we can go up to basically 1/10 of the size of the Milky of the Milky Way of our galaxy. So that's bigger. That's much bigger than just the orbit of Saturn. But it's still quite small. We also note that in Srimad Bhagavatam, the diameter of the Lokalaka mountain is stated to be half the diameter of the universe. Okay, so this is consistent with the statement of Srila Prabhupada's purport that, according to some, this is only half of the circumference. So this is the end of the first chapter of the Vedic Cosmology and Astronomy of Sariputta Prabhu. And if you have any questions, then now it's a good time to ask them.
Thank you very much, Murali. Yes, there's Krishna Chaitanya. You may go ahead. You can unmute.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
Oh, okay. I'm actually outside walking, but so thank you for the nice summary of the first chapter. My question is, when we try to correspond the modern definition of what a universe means to the Vedic definition of Brahmanda, I know you made numerical comparisons, but out of your research, what is your view as to what the term Brahmanda corresponds to? Is it a galaxy, or is it till Saturn per one of the definitions, or is it the observable universe as modern cosmology would like to phrase it? So this is something I've been trying to understand. Does a Brahmanda really mean the observable universe in its entirety, or does it refer to some parts? Because we also read that from the pores of the body of Mahavishnu, several universes emanate. So what does it really mean as far as the term Brahmanda corresponding to the universe is concerned? So any thoughts on that would be great.
Yeah, well, that is an excellent question, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu. And in fact, that is one of the things that we're looking at right now we're researching at the Bhaktivedanta Institute for higher studies. What are the different where does the Brahmanda come in the different places of the Bhagavatam and other Vedic works, and are they consistent? Are they talking about the same thing? We're looking into that right now, because it is not clear to us that it's always talking about the same thing. It is possible that in one it could include, yeah, like it's talking about the whole universe, but is it possible that, you know, in others it's talking about just a galaxy, or is it possible that in another one it's just talking about the solar system? We don't know yet, and that is something that we're actively searching. But that is a very good question, and it's good that we keep asking it.
Yeah, thank you. I have quite a lot of interest in Vedic cosmology. I had my bachelor's in aerospace and then my PhD in electrical engineering, but I've always been fascinated about space. And recently, I've also been from a few years learning Sanskrit and Jyotish. So that brought me, somebody forwarded the uh, lecture link for today, and so that's really good that this work is being undertaken in ISKCON, and yeah, we really need a lot of research into it. So thank you for doing that. Keep
Well,
it up.
if you would like, maybe you can contact some of the devotees at the Bhaktivedanta Institute. For example, I see Prishni here in the audience, and you can talk to her, so that maybe you can be part of this of this group. You know, looking into that. Maybe you can be part of the team that is looking into the different ways that the Brahmanda is being talked about, and what is it really saying when it says the Brahmanda.
Yeah, that would be great if I can connect with someone. I'm sorry to take everyone's time, but if someone can
Not a problem
direct
at
message
all.
me.
Yeah, no, as I said, connect with Prishni, so that because yeah, we need more people involved here. We need people that are looking into the different shastras, and that are looking at the different definitions and things like that. So please.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, before you go away, Krishna Chaitanya, I'm Prishni.
Yes.
If you would be so kind as just go to the website, the BIHS website. You've been there? BIH
I did
studies.
take a look some time ago.
Yeah. Just fill out the contact form. That comes to me. Then I'll have your email
Okay.
address, and then I'll put you on the list, and you'll get all this stuff. And the other thing, it was such a good question. It gives me an opportunity to put in a plug for our upcoming cosmology conference, because we have Advija Govinda, who has a PhD in both physics and computational math, is actually doing a presentation on this very topic. What is a Brahmanda? He's also going to be giving, yes, that'll be really interesting. So please come. You can register for that conference also on the website. And Dvija is also giving the talk in this series on chapter 4 of Vedic Cosmography, which is the vertical dimension. And so you can ask him the same question, actually, because in the vertical dimension, they do talk a lot about what is the Brahmanda. So if you tune into that, the schedule's right there on the website, so you can find out when that one's going to be, and be sure to come to that one as well.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And you can start working with him. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, thank you.
We have also a question or hand up by Ekta Shah. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for the just awesome talk. Sorry, I kind of just woke up for the talk. I'm in California, so yeah, but you really wake me up. So I am actually I wanted to ask you little bit detailed question and little bit kind of broader question too. So the detail related question is in your slide on the Yojana problem. So could you really quickly bring that up just so?
Okay, let me share the screen again. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Try it again, Murali.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me see.
I think I had one where you had comparison of You had mentioned like values from Aryabhat. Yeah, this is the one. Perfect. So I wanted to ask, so it seems like in this case, so the two method, like if we just take like Aryabhat and Bhaskaracharya's values, right? So it seems like at first we are kind of assuming that the values that they have given about the diameter of Earth in Yojana is the same as the same as like the modern value, right? And then we are kind of going back and like, if this is like how many yojans they mentioned, then what is the equivalent value of miles based on that, right? Um so so in some ways that seems a little bit flawed, right? Because in theory, ideally what we would like is, we would like some independent definition of like how many yojans is 1 mile, and then get the value for their calculation, right? Because right now we are assuming that they have the, like, most modern value, right? Is that fair to say? um
I see where you're coming from. Yes, that we're assuming here that they're meaning the diameter of Earth as we know it.
yeah
Right.
But a way around it would be, I mean, I wouldn't think that this is the only place where yojan appeared, right? Like if that was the standard of metric, even for long distances, or like 5 miles is not that long. So I think one way, like, because anybody can ask this question, right? So one way, if we really want to check these values and compare it properly, I think one way around it could be like looking at maybe some other text around that time, which I don't know how many other, but kind of getting some sort of independent measure of like how many yojans was equivalent to mile, and then doing this calculation and see how off they are, right? Like, we are not saying you have to be, completely right, because it's like how many observations they had. And I would be actually really interested in kind of looking at the methods that they have used, because like, even if you look at like Western civilization, for the longest time, we didn't even have method to measure diameter of Earth, right? So like, the fact that in those earlier times they were dealing with this kind of problems, even if you got it order of magnitude is right, that itself is a great achievement, because that kind of shows like what kind of methods and what kind of abstract level thinking they were doing, right? So yeah.
So I mean, it's nice that you're thinking in these lines and everything. There are other I mean, this is something here that Sariputta put. I believe that in the Mysteries of the Sacred Universe, Sariputta Prabhu also talked again about the Yojana problem, and he included more examples of how they defined the yojana that do not just include the diameter of the Earth. But we could we have here Brahmatirtha Prabhu, who's a geologist. We could probably safely say that the diameter of the Earth from the medieval times of Bhaskaracharya and Surya Siddhanta probably did not change that much from the modern value of the diameter of the Earth. These are one thing also that Sariputta mentions here is that these distances, the distances that you find in things like Bhaskaracharya or the Surya Siddhanta are 60% larger than Aryabhat in general. So it seems that they really do have a different way. And Bhaskaracharya and Surya Siddhanta are a way. If you take the differences between what the scholars are normally saying that Surya Siddhanta is said to be written around, what is it, third, something like the third or fourth or the 4th or the 5th centuries of the Christian era. And Bhaskaracharya was much more. I can't remember if it's something like the year 1000 or somewhere around there. So it's about 1,000 years difference. Still, the diameter of the Earth is, you would expect it to be not that different, but their distances are consistently different. So it does seem reasonable that there were 2 standards of yojana, and from what you can see here, the yojana was not sometimes very precise, like the 4 kroshas, the distance that a healthy man.
Oh, yeah.
So the yojana, sometimes the yojana was described in terms of the span of in terms of the span of the arm length of a person who was performing a yajna.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
Yeah,
that
that's
can
what I've
also
been doing.
vary,
Yeah.
very much depending on how big the person is. So there are many different ways of doing the yojana, and again, this was analyzed a little bit better in Mysteries of the Sacred Universe by Sariputta Prabhu. If you want that I believe that's one of the chapters or one of the appendixes, and he goes into like the many different definitions and how it spans basically from somewhere like a couple of a few miles, like 4 miles or something like that, all the way up to like 9-10 miles from all the different sources.
Yeah, and also I just want to clarify, like when I said that, we are assuming that the values they have are the modern values, I didn't meant to kind of say it as if the geographically radius of Earth would be different. I meant to say like, them getting the accurate answer, right? Like because they might have used like, slightly different whatever value of yojana. Currently we are assuming that they got like the exact answer, right, based on their method, but that's what I mean, like their answer could be like off, so that's one thing. And another thing is so right now we are saying that, hey, they got like 2 different values for the conversion, but did they use like exactly the same method? Because if you use different method, I mean, I don't know which methods they use. I would be really interested in
Well,
looking.
one of the methods that was like very common back in that day, and that was even practiced in Greece, was the idea of the shadow.
Hello?
Right? You know that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so shadow in at noon in 2 different places will cast a different shadow, and looking at how different they are, and knowing how far apart these 2 places are, then you can get
Yeah.
that was a very common way of measuring that and in fact it's not really that bad. You do get a figure that is close to this 8,000 miles that we have nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like with modern calculation, you do have to, they take consideration into like, oh, Earth is not completely spherical and this and that. So given that all those values were still based on like relatively local measurements, it's like that's I think
That's a good point. That's a very good point, that you have the Earth that bulges out on the sides, and it's a little bit less on the top. So yeah, that is a good point. Are you studying astronomy?
yeah, I'm an astronomer at UC Davis in California. University of California days, and so I got my PhD from Rochester, New York, a couple of years ago, and now I'm a postdoc here.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. So I study like galaxy protoclusters right now and like galaxy mergers and stuff. But it's only very recently that like, I'm looking at all this ancient text and getting really amazed by just, the wealth of information and wealth of knowledge. And it's very appealing to me to kind of really look at them and see what they have and stuff,
Would it be possible for you also, I forgot, what's your name again?
Ikta Shah.
If you would also go to the to our website and fill out the contact form, and you can actually send me a little note. I'm secretary, and I keep all this information, and I can add you to the list, and then you can start coming to the meeting. So that would be very nice if you'd kindly do that to get yourself into the system. Then we'll have you in the system. And that would be very nice. Thank you very much for all those nice things.
Yeah, again, when this Yojana problem has not been resolved, and it's possible that there are many different standards of Yojana. This could be, as I told Krishna Chaitanya, maybe you could get involved with the Bhaktivedanta Institute, looking at things that these kind of questions that you're posing, like how good is it, that we're considering, the Yojana to a mile in this way, could be in other ways. So the Yojana problem is not something that has been solved and is like given, as you know, in science.
Yeah.
Things are always open. So please, connect with the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and so that you can start researching a little bit more into the Yojana.
Yeah, I mean, I would be also really interested in like looking at these methods, not only to measure like diameter of Earth, but also like I have no clue like how did they measure like sizes of planets, right? Because like the distance is like, how do you even measure
exactly
based on like or something? But
if you see also the cover of the book that we're looking at, it's one of the astronomy places that is in India that was constructed to be able to look at and measure these things. So these are all things that you could look into. Maybe you could even travel to these places and start, like inquiring more, like how did they come up with these things? What were the instruments that they used? How accurate were they, and all these things. So that's something that you could research into.
Yeah, definitely.
Murali, just one moment. We have some other questions. Is it possible that perhaps we can continue with that, and then we can return to this at another time? Thank you. So we have Ranjit Prabhu. Go ahead. Thank you, Ekta. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I just want to really quickly say thank you so much to all of you for organizing this. I mean, I grew up in India and I had gone to ISKCON mandirs and stuff, but we were mostly doing dancing on Sundays. But this is just absolutely incredible to come like all the way to the other part of the world and having this kind of discussions based on like ancient text, from India. So thank you so much. This is just absolutely amazing.
Lila, let me say one thing. I'm director of the BI, Brahmatirtha, and we have a group of astronomers, astrophysicists, all PhDs working on this. We have work groups. Leela's going to put mine and Prishni's email address in the chat for you, and you can write us and we'll connect you, and you can be with these groups as just a participant, or if you prefer, just an observer. Either way would be fine. You certainly have the qualifications, and Davis is a cool town to be in.
Thank you so much. That would be really great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Ranjit Prabhu, please go ahead.
Jai Hare Krishna. I'm amazed whenever I read anything by Sariputta, how incredible his insights and his intelligence, and I mean, the breadth of vision that he had in all these topics is amazing. I just have a few comments, and one is that this dating of the beginning of Kali Yuga at 3102 BC. Now, there is a Purana, I think it's called the Bhavishya Purana, that states that the first 5,000 years of Kali Yuga will be a very dark age, which will then be followed by a golden age. And if you add 3102, if you add 5,000 years to 3102, it comes to 1898, 2 years after the appearance of Srila Prabhupada on this planet. And so I often joke that, you know, I want to know which demigod goofed on the 2 years. But apart from that, there are variables in scientific observations. For example, I just read recently that there are variables in calculating the speed of light, that at different times, different scientists, when they're calculating, I don't know exactly the methodology they use, but they calculate the speed of light. And it varies according to the time and the place in which they're calculating the speed of light. But I thought that was interesting because modern science prides itself on being so exact and precise. And we know that the forces of nature, as arranged by Krishna and the demigods, is not quite so precise. So I thought that was interesting. And the other observation is that when I read the 5th canto, it bears absolutely no resemblance whatsoever to the Surya Siddhanta. You know, you have Mount Meru at 80,000 miles high. I mean, what kind of mountain is that? It's just a different scope, a different way of looking or way of observing the universe, and it doesn't seem to relate at all. But these are my comments, and I was curious if you had some idea of how and why this I mean, incredible difference in the 5th canto and the series Dante, how that is. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone.
Well, with respect to the speed of light, you do expect that from one person to another, you know, one researcher to another, you will have some statistical deviation on, you know, based on the method that you use. But in general, the speed of light has been pretty much the same, you know, measured the same throughout everything. And you might just have like the statistical deviation, which has been reducing as our methods have gotten better into it. You could sometimes talk about the speed of light being something going further and faster than the speed of light, but generally you're talking about phase, the phase speed versus the group speed and all that stuff. So those are just technicalities, and it's not really the speed of light per se. Regarding the differences in the way that the Surya Siddhanta or the different Jyotish Shastras talk about, we do see that there's a very big difference in the way that one of them talks about the universe and the other one and the Puranas talk about the universe. as we mentioned before, well, as Sariputta Prabhu mentioned in his talk in his book, there some of the a lot of the people that worked with the Sriya Siddhanta and other ones like Aryabhat, Bhaskaracharya, and all of them, they do have a problem with the Puranas, because some of them are even unable to accept, like, what do you mean a mountain that is so big, that nobody sees, and what are you talking about, like the Mount Meru one? It just doesn't make sense to them. So we can see that the problems that we've been having in understanding the fifth canto nowadays is not a new problem. It's not something that, nowadays, because of it's not like because of modern science, now we have a different way of understanding. And no. We're talking really that the fifth canto is very different from observational astronomy, not just modern science, but observational astronomy. So anything that has to do with our senses. So we have to research and know more about what is it actually talking about. How do we understand it? And it's not an easy question, because as we just saw, it's been going on for centuries. It's been going on for centuries. A lot of material has been lost. A lot of knowledge has been lost in time, and so a lot those things that were implied that everybody knew about when they were reading the Puranas back then, when they were created, it's no longer accessible to us. It's no longer normal for us to understand. And that's what we're doing at the Bhaktivedanta Institute. We're trying to look at different ways in which you can look at this to better correspond what we see with our senses and what the Puranas are talking about.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Murali. We have thank you, Ranjit Prabhu. We have a hand raised by Rajapati Swami and then Krishna Kirtandas. Please go ahead, you can unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Murali Prabhu, thank you very much. This area is very tough, and this lecture series helps a lot to easily enter into the topic. Thank you very much. And I also like to thank our Brahmatirtha Prabhu and Krishna and others at Gainesville, BI Gainesville, for organizing this. I have a couple of observations. One is the Yojana aspect, Yojana question. In Bhagavatam, there is a place where it talks about how to measure the time, and there it talks about how time is accurately measured by taking into account of vibration of atoms, of the light atoms it talks about. So which means that there is such a sophistication or precision of thought in the scripture. So I guess somewhere there could be a definition for distance or length also somewhere in scripture. Probably it will come out at some point, because the Bhagavatam, I think, talks about yojanas in this one. So this is one observation. And another observation, in your presentation, you have mentioned about how they were trying to measure the diameter of the earth by measuring the shadow at two different places on the earth. So it gives very logical way to measure the diameter. Probably we can look into it, that if sun is at a distance, if you put a pole in two different places on the earth, and at the same time you take shadow length, and probably you may be able to calculate the diameter. So So things appear very logical. And as you said, there could be two streams of astronomy. One is the exact, probably that is talked in the Puranas and all. And another is practical in the Jyotisha, for a brief period of time, which is valid for brief periods of time. So, but if we try searching sometime, Prabhupada may bless us with some text, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all of a sudden he brought out from a temple this beautiful Brahma Samhita, which is not available before, but Lord knows where the texts are. So if BI scientists, they work hard, we work hard. So we will be definitely blessed by Prabhupada, and we'll find Prabhupada will show the way. And also it helps us as a devotional service. If things are very simple, BI will be, we will have no work. It is also for our good that things are unresolved, and the blessing. Prabhupada has opened up this scientific. A great scientist should endeavor to establish that God is a person. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Again,
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Yeah, it's maybe we'll find something someday, you know, where it says like, oh, this is exactly what we needed. Yeah, as you pointed out right now, there are different the Surya Siddhanta, like these, they're not they're not absolute. These are very observationally, how do you call it, driven types of text, and they're using their own idea of yojana. Now, whether there is an absolute standard of this is the yojana, I don't know. It seems from what Sariputta Prabhu, when as he did his research for this book and for the Mysteries of the Sacred Universe, that everybody in India had a different idea of what yojana is, and that their way of describing it has been you know, this is the way that I define a yojana, and they go for it. Whether there is that perfect standard, I don't know. Which is the standard that they're using in the Puranas? Well, it's very likely that it's the 8,000 miles per yojana. At least it seems reasonable from what Sariputta Prabhu gives, but it's something that we're going to have to just keep researching. And it may be that there is no perfect way of like, oh, this is perfect. This is the one and only way of yojana. But throughout history, people may have just used different types of yojana for different purposes. Like, for example, yeah, like the arm's length, in terms of the arm's length of a person that is doing a yajna. So, okay, so in this procedure, they are using a yojana in that sense, which may be different from something else. Right now, in modern days, we want just one standard, you know, because that's what they do, the metric system. Here is the perfect standard, and we keep it and we define it, and everybody knows about it like that. Probably back then that wasn't the case. It wasn't as critical for there to be just the one and only standard. Okay, Leela, who we talk about?
We have Krishna Kirtandas, and then Donnie here, who's with us in person. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. So I have a comment on the backdating calculating the start of the Kali Yuga by doing astronomical calculation of the planet alignment. I read some opinion. I believe it was by Shyamatundar Prabhu, the astrologer. He's basing, basically we just can't do that because any of these calculations, require these, basically input parameters like, the bija, right? And those parameters need to be updated periodically. So essentially you cannot just take the same parameter, the same program, same parameter, just going back, all the time because it will not be accurate. But I mean, of course, that would definitely be true for, like the Siddhanta literature we mentioned where they have very crude calculations, right? So that those bija need to be updated periodically. I'm just wondering with the modern, calculation, these programs, like how accurate they will be, like how many years can they go back and still be accurate, say, within say 1% of the position. I wonder if someone can do a research like that, like to go back 5,000 years to be within 1% of precision, what's the precision required on this, on the current observation? Is that within the margin of error, or that's actually beyond our ability to measure? And also, will there be other forces that we are not, the model doesn't even, take consideration? It could be a chaotic system where, a little bit change in input can be, drastically different over a long period of time. So that just, I just wonder if, someone would be interested in, looking to this kind of calculation.
That's a good question. How, what is the accuracy of this? It's 3,102 BC plus minus how much, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Prashni might know if Sariputta Prabhu looked into that specific.
What I was going to say, not so much that, but there's a whole lot of literature, if you look out there, on the solar system, of course, is a dynamic system, which means it's subject to chaos theory. In other words, it's a chaotic system. And so you have huge issues with predictability in a chaotic system. And there's a whole lot of stuff written. If you want to actually go online, I've done this. There's a Russian guy. I can send you out his name. I can send it to you, Krishna Kirtan, and also you, Murali, who has done a lot of work on this very thing about the predictability of these dynamic systems, especially ones that involve rotary motion. So yeah, it's a huge issue. And Sariputta actually says at one point, we have no idea. There's no way we can have any idea what the solar system was doing even 50,000 years ago. We have no data. So you can run these programs, but that doesn't mean that the universe was following those laws. There's no way you can know. So there are huge discussions on this, and I can get you started by sending you a few links to some of these discussions if you're interested.
The interesting thing, though, is that this program actually shows that it does correspond to at least what we would expect of 5,000 years ago.
Yes.
And it says that there were only three times in which the alignments of the planets were such that it came up like that. So at the very least, we could give that much credit to these programs.
Well, I mean, that's my exact question. Like, are these programs, are these kind of extrapolating over 5,000 years accurate? Like, we first have to show that, and then we can use that as evidence to collaborate to the start of Kali Yuga data, right? But if we cannot even establish this program can, accurately extrapolate 5,000 years back, then this is not an evidence we can use. So that's my main point.
Well, it's good enough, at least right now, to say that it is reasonable to believe that it is like that. It is reasonable. It is not proven like that, and people do use these programs like that in archaeoastronomy, which is a branch now of astronomy. But as Prashni was saying, we do need to continue looking into what people like this Russian astronomer is looking into, and do our own research into that.
So in the one you mentioned, what's their commonly accepted period of time they can go back to? Do they go back, 2,000 years, 5,000 years, 10,000 years? Like, what's the commonly accepted confidence interval there?
Rajni?
Well, I don't know if this is any indication, but NASA, which uses the most modern computer programs you can conceive of, will only predict eclipses up to 1,000 years. And they say, you can go to their website, they say because there's just so many unpredictable things, so many wobbles and this and that in a system like the solar system, you can't predict more than that. So yeah, in that sense, you can say if you're going back 5,000 years, how accurate is the prediction? But you'll notice if you read, I don't know if it comes up so much in Vedic cosmography, but in Mysteries of the Sacred Universe, Sariputta calculates that date from different angles. So he doesn't just use astronomy programs. He uses research done by biblical researchers. He does, he works from Aryabhat's work as well. He comes at it from 3 or 4 different angles, and they all tend to converge right around that exact date. So that I think you'd find interesting if you study those sections in the on this in the Mysteries of the Sacred Universe. You'll find a lot of corroborating stuff that, okay, we get this date doing this, but as you pointed out, how accurate is this? Well, it also, you get the same date if you come at it in a totally different way, and then he comes at it in a third way, I think using Aryabhat's work, and it also comes up on that date. And now it begins to, you see what I'm saying? Begins to look a little more, okay, well, if all 3 of them are saying this, you feel a little more confident. That's a pretty good number.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take one more comment or question. We have Donnie here.
Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was thinking about this like yojana as being described as like in relationship to the height of a person or the distance that they can shout and be heard. One of the things we know from the Vedas is that the height has drastically changed from Satyuga to Kali Yuga. And I've also, without being an astronomer, heard perhaps that even the universe itself is not it's, people say that it's expanding and changing. And my question and perhaps comment is sort of related to the made me think of like Shilpi Shastra, the deity makers. And so they'll take a reed, they want to make a deity this size, so they'll take a reed that size and then they'll put folds into that reed. And according to the proportions, everything is divinely so. And they use that as their ruler. So I wonder, is there any sort of perhaps correlation between like some sort of divine proportion of a expanding or contracting, changing universe and the size and vigor of an individual that can make a loud sound? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, is this a divine proportion wherein someone calculating this in the beginning of Kali Yuga, their yojana, might look more like a 5'7" person or like a 7-foot person, whereas like the yojana for like at the end of the Kali Yuga might be more like 3 feet, and depending on where you want to calculate the actual thing from, like perhaps there's like a Satya Yuga divine proportion that we've gone away from, and that would be like an absolute metric, or perhaps there's a sliding scale of relationship between the cosmic body and the body of a normal being. Does any of that have research?
As you pointed out, there's problems when it's so when the definition is so vague, it could change due to different circumstances. I don't know specifically where this one yojana equals the 4 kroshas, being the distance of that a person can shout and all that. So I'm not sure where that is. If it's on something that was done by modern or ancient texts, how far away, and but what you're saying, it is true, and is that some of these things can change over time because of how we view them, how do we interpret them, and so we have to be careful when reading these things, that as I think Ekta was saying previously, how do is this really what it means? Do we understand this, or are we reading into it our modern values, our modern way of thinking? So that's a very good observation. Thank you very much.
Just if I could make one comment just to kind of round this off. I think what Donnie's is getting at, and this is something that we're actually really starting to research now, is that most of these astronomical terms are quantitative terms used in the Bhagavatam are context sensitive. And I think we tend to forget that. We want to think, oh, there's a yojana. But if you look, you look at the Vedic literature, you're going to get different values depending on the context of the discussion. And so the Puranas are made up as a series of discussions that take place over millions of years. So what we're looking at now with the Brahmanda, Dweej is looking at that term as being context sensitive. So you have to look at the context in which that term is being used, and then you can get an understanding of what they're talking about. But to try to, with the Vedic literature, to try to get some absolute definition of anything is I think, not going to work. So yojana, I think, is definitely context sensitive, and I think it varies quite a bit. Sulabha did some work with geography. That's his specialty, geography in the Puranas. And if you use, I think he came up with a yojana of 1.3 miles, and all the distances that they give in the Puranas of different cities and mountain ranges adds up to what? If you go to India, you measure those distances. So that's another indication, context sensitive. When they're talking geometry, they're using a whole different value for the yojana. So we shouldn't expect the Bhagavatam to be, so simple that we can just say, oh, when it says yojana, it means this. That would be my take on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you, Murali. We're at time. So we will be back in 2 weeks with chapter 2 of Vedic Cosmography and Astronomy. The chapter is Vedic Physics, the Nature of Space, Time, and Matter, and that will be presented by Krishna Nashringa. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. That's July 29th, 11 a.m. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Murali. Thank you very much for your time, for presenting. Yes. That was very clear.
Very nice talk.
Yes.
Murali, we'll see you in 1 hour for our next meeting.
Okay, very good.
Well done.
Hare Krishna. Very nice.